by giving them that bait of that match, saying, here's this little match, I'll give it to you. When they snatch that up, they now wash their hands of that responsibility. And now a worker who drives a truck or works on an assembly line or isn't an accountant, an attorney, or an investor now has to shoulder the burden of retirement. This was supposed to be a tiny little tax code.
Well, I was just about to say is that the consideration for the formation of it was a way to get tax-free income to highly paid executives.
It was to recruit better talent.
If it was going to be something that was going to be more pervasive and wage earners were going to start utilizing it, I'd imagine they would have written it a bit differently.
Imagine that. I'm putting money into something every month called a 401k that was never designed to do what it's doing. If you were to use the phrase, the law of unintended consequences, there is not a better case on planet Earth of that law than the 401k. Well, the next chapter of this is Wall Street.
Yeah.
The most important word or phrase on Wall Street is assets under management.
Right.
That's how they make their money. It's fees.
Right.
The larger amount of money they can collect, the more money they make. And so that's a rough thing when all of a sudden you can just hear the champagne corks popping when they said, my gosh, we're going to take money out of their paycheck before they even see it.
Right.
And they're going to buy our products and we'll have those assets under management. The thing that's scary about this is as investors, you and I would, if you were a real estate investor, you'd look at a property and look at its merits before you'd invest. You'd look at a business and look at its merits. You would never be on autopilot just blindly buying things because you were on schedule to do so, regardless of the price, regardless of the economy, regardless of where it's going. But the mutual fund money, people know, dollar cost averaging means this. Send me your money when the market goes up. Send me your money when the market goes down. Send me your money when the market goes sideways.
Right.
In other words, no matter what happens,
send me your money.
Send me your money.
Right.
How much risk do they take?
Yeah. Oh, they take none.
They take none.
No, they're getting a piece of all those dollars every month.
And so when you look at their profit, that's an infinite return because they have no money in the deal of their own.
Right.
So they have an infinite rate of return and absolutely no risk.
And a lack of responsibility in many respects too, right? Because if they perform poorly and the market goes down based on how they're behaving, the person who gets hurt is the person who worked for the money. They still get their fees.
If you go to these money managers and you say, my balance is small, who will they blame? You're not saving enough, you should give us more money.
Right.
They will blame you every single time. You're not saving enough. It's your fault. People are not saving. And that has been the banner. They have enacted, the next legislation was 2006 under President Bush, where they said, hey, we need the Pension Protection Act, which really doesn't protect pensions, it protects defined contributions. And they said, look, we're going to make this automatic enrollment. See, before then, you had to go into your human resource department and say, hey, I volunteer, I'd like to participate. Now you have to opt out rather than opt in. And so imagine just look at the other side of the coin. If you're a mutual fund salesman, you get to have a product where people buy on autopilot if they have a job and they have to opt out from buying your product rather than opt in. In this whole narrative, there is not one instance where anyone had the interest of a middle income or low income worker in mind ever. It was either the rich executive wanting to defer a big bonus, or it was a company trying to help their bottom line, or it was the mutual fund industry. Imagine $7 trillion under management, whether it goes up, down, or sideways, that's a lot of fees they get to take.
Yeah.
I've had the opportunity to talk with Ted Bennett personally. He's a wonderful man. He's a gentleman. And he's often asked if he feels if this is a failure. He says, well, Andy, number one, how can you say it's a failure if it was never intended to shoulder the burden of retirement, number one? And number two, we've helped people save $7 trillion. Well, you can look at that a couple of ways.
Yeah.
You've also helped Wall Street accumulate $7 trillion, which is their engine to make them money. And the tough thing, and the thing that makes me so passionate about this, is the worker. I knew we were going to have a chance to chat today, and so I took the liberty of printing out a report from Vanguard. This is called How America Saves 2018. It's Vanguard's defined contribution plan data. Of the $7.5 trillion that are in these plans, Vanguard has more than 1.2 trillion of it.
Wow.
So this is an excellent sampling of where they are. And it's interesting because if you look at age, there's two numbers that we ought to discuss. The first one is if you look at people 45 to 54, and they're staring at retirement, the average 401k balance in Vanguard for this age group is just under $130,000. Now that might sound exciting. It's six figures. That's got to last 20 years of retirement. But more important than the average, because if you have a few millionaires at the top, that drags that up. More important than the average would be the median.
Yeah.
And what does the median mean? Well, that's the guy in the middle,
Right.
in the middle. That means half everyone is above, half everyone's below.
Right.
The median is 70,000. Now, if you plan on having a 20-year retirement, that's $300 a month.
Yeah.
So while Ted might say, well, how can you call it a failure if we've helped people save trillions? Well, for these people, it's a failure. And these are the people I care about. Imagine that. Half the participants at this age. If you go to 55 to 64, that's $71,000 in the mean. That's people. People that are 65 and over, $64,000.
It goes down as they're getting older.
64.
Wow.
Well, they're not able to put money in anymore.
Yeah.
And so this is at a time where we have a stock market at all-time highs.
Yeah.
So here's the question. Where'd the money go?